Alright guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we're going to finish cleaning up the engine bay in my 440i. Some of you that have been subscribed for a while might remember that a couple years ago I started on this journey trying to remove some extra hoses and things in my car that were needed for emissions but didn't really affect performance, and I just wanted to, reduce that rat's nest that we call the B58 engine. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to complete it because some of the parts that I wanted to remove would leave holes open and stuff where we didn't really have a solution to fix those openings. But now, thanks to Ross Racing, we actually have specific fittings made for the B58 engine as well as other BMW engines so that you can delete your Evap system, create custom PCV solutions, whatever you wish depending on your specific setup. So I've got some of the fittings, and today we're going to be installing them on my car. And if you guys are interested, check out the link in the video description and you can see all of the options that are available for your car as well. But let's go ahead and get this installation started, and hopefully you guys find this video useful.
Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future.
Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is start removing the rest of this Evap stuff. I did a part 1 of the Evap removal that had the line coming off of here and the line coming off of this part of the intake manifold. So if you guys want to see part 1 and how I got rid of that, you can check out the video I posted a couple years ago. Now that I've got this nice shiny upgraded intake manifold, I want to remove the rest of it so you can see it better, and again just kind of declutter everything in here. So we're going to go ahead and use the first Ross Racing fitting that we have, which is this block off, and it just kind of fits in the hole. You can see it has a little O-ring to seal it up, seal that hole off, and then we can get rid of everything. So let's go ahead and remove it and swap this fitting on. Now the actual screw that you're going to need to remove right here is going to vary. Since I have an aftermarket intake manifold, mine is an Allen key, so I need a 5mm Allen. But if you have a stock intake manifold, I think it's a Torx screw. So go ahead and remove the screw. And then pull this off. There we go. And then we're just going to replace it with our Ross Racing fitting. So it should push straight in, just like that, pretty solid. And then we'll put this on here. This area, of course, does see boost pressure, so it does need to be sealed up and tightened down. You can't just sit this fitting on top of here. So make sure you tighten it down so that you don't create a boost leak. Now to remove the rest of this line, you just pinch on this, on the sides right here, and then it should pull off. There we go. So just for clarification, basically these rough edges are what you want to squeeze down on, so squeeze it in, and then you should be able to pull it off of the valve. Now in theory we could stop here, but you remember this Evap line goes under the car all the way back to the fuel tank. It's venting fuel vapor back into your intake so that it can be burnt off and go through your combustion chamber. So I want to remove all of it. So I'm going to disconnect this under the car. Hopefully I can pull all of this out without having to lift up the intake manifold or anything. So let's get under there and see what we can do. All right, so now we are under the car. I've removed the belly pan, and you can see right underneath the left-hand side of the car, we've got the fuel Evap line stuff coming up and going into the engine bay, and this bracket is what we need to remove. So there are two 10mm bolts, kind of hard to see, but one there, and then there's also a third one up here. We're going to remove those three and move the bracket out of the way so we can access that Evap line behind it. Now between these two, you want to remove the white line, and there should be these 2 points that you can squeeze on and pull this off. It's probably going to be hard with one hand, so I'm going to try to do this with two. I know you probably can't see what I'm doing, but it's basically these ridges. Focus. There's like ridges on here, so you squeeze on the ridge with one hand, pull this out with the other hand, and this is how it looks disconnected. So now we're going to try to pull this line off, but one other thing I'm going to do is install this vibrant crankcase breather, and I'll have a link to this down in the description, but it's the perfect size, even though this isn't really a crankcase like PCV breather, that I can slide this onto here. I'll push it on a little bit more, but you get the idea. It basically slides onto this Evap hose, and what this does is it allows it to vent so that air can still go in and out as it heats up and cools down and expands and contracts. It'll let fuel vapor exit from here so it can still vent, but it's not going to let dirt and stuff from underneath the car go into your fuel system and get back to your fuel tank potentially. So I just like to squeeze this on here, and that way I know for sure I'm not letting it get contaminated or anything. So yeah, I'll have a link in the description to where you can buy this. Now, of course, the last piece is pulling out the rest of this line, which it does have this piece down here, this little canister. I'm going to try to pull it out through the top. Hopefully I don't need to like remove anything else, because I'm not removing my intake manifold. If not, I'll just get some pliers and cut it on that piece of the fuel line. You can basically use some snips and cut it up there so that you can basically lower this part down and then pull the rest of the line up from the top. But I'm going to try to pull this all out from the top and see if I can get it. Now, as you can see, I kind of started just pulling it straight up from the top, and it came a little bit, but there were still some things that it was getting hung up on. So I ended up having to go under the car, and I was able to see a way I could kind of rotate it to maneuver it through all the other stuff that's underneath your engine bay. So if you had somebody under the car to kind of help guide it out, that would make this go a lot easier. But this just kind of shows that you can definitely pull the Evap hose out from the top of the car without removing your intake manifold. Now, the next thing that I want to do is upgrade my PCV delete situation. And I know a lot of you guys have asked me where I got this piece, and this came with my dock race kit. It was actually designed to integrate with the Evap system. So I cut it short just so that I would have this filter on here. But honestly, I don't like how it looks just sticking out. So I think I can make this a little bit cleaner by running a fitting off of the valve cover and then just routing an actual AN line out of the way so I can get rid of that thing. So this is the fitting that we're going to be using. It's basically like a sharp 90. So this makes it really easy to clear the top mount turbo kit, and we can plug this in and then create an AN line that screws into here and then route the hose out of the way. So let's put all that together. Now here's how the fitting looks installed. Keep in mind, because my turbo is so close with this EFR turbo kit, I did have to trim down the valve cover a little bit in order to get this on. For most other top mount turbo kits with like a PTE turbo or Garrett turbo, you won't have this issue. The EFRs are just really big. But we got the fitting on, and then I also bought an AN line and AN fittings to build an additional dump tube. So I'll have a link to those in the description as well. And then I just screwed that onto the fitting. So now it's nice and tucked away. It actually goes under the intake manifold because I think that looks a little bit cleaner. Now, the last thing we're going to do is upgrade this little doohickey that we have right here. And if you look really closely, the hose goes down and it connects to the side of the block. You can barely see it, but there's one screw holding it into the side of the block. And I actually didn't fully understand that until recently, but it is a part of our PCV system. So that hole obviously goes into your crankcase, and gases under there, typically you want them to vent out. That's why we have our PCV delete. So as much PCV gases as possible can vent out. However, that one actually has a check valve on the engine block, so it can only suck in air, and that is to help manage the vacuum that's inside your crankcase so that you don't create any issues. Now, if you've converted it to vent to atmosphere, like in my case, again, I've done my PCV delete, it doesn't see any vacuum, so that check valve just basically stays closed all the time. But if you have a stock PCV and it's hooked up to your stock intake, then it can suck in air and manage your crankcase pressure. So we're going to again delete that with a fitting from Ross Racing. So this basically replaces that. You remove the one screw, install this on the side, and then it has this AN fitting, which gives you a lot of different options. You can connect it to a catch can. You might even be able to make this like your catch can drain. So the oil in your catch can will drain back into your oil plan and make that, completely maintenance free. Or in my case, I'm just going to cap this off because I don't have an intake. There's no vacuum being pulled on my crankcase. So I just want to clean this up and make it look as minimal as possible. So I'm going to put a rubber cap on this and then remove that hose and install this fitting in its place. Now, normally you would want to remove your charge pipe and everything in order to access it because it's literally like right behind there. But since my car is already up in the air, I actually have a pretty good angle that I can see it from the bottom of the car. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew it from the bottom and then swap this piece out. So yeah, that's everything installed on my car. Also, you can see like I've got a different intake filter now. So I switched to a black filter just so that, it kind of doesn't disrupt the engine bay's look with random red things in there. So something I did for my own sanity. And now I think the engine bay looks a lot better than it did before. Everything still works as it should. There are no issues. You will have some codes that you might need to disable. So work with your tuner to disable those. Or if you have boot mode, there's a section where you can input codes that you want to disable specifically. And if you list out all the codes that I have in the description, it should prevent you from getting any check engine lights related to the emission stuff that you've deleted. But overall, very happy with this product. Again, a big thank you to Ross Racing for finally creating a solution for those of us that have wanted this for so long. So if you're interested in getting these parts, again, check out the link in the video description. You're supporting a B58 owner and somebody that just created this company a couple years ago to help us solve problems that we have with our cars and give us some very nice solutions to fix these little things. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.